What's one of the main things that makes producers like DJ Premier, J Dilla, and Pete Rock so great? There's a thing that gets discussed in producer circles, which is called a weapon of choice. For Premier, it was the MPC 60 and the S950.
Put it through the S950, then stretch it.
For J Dilla, it was the MPC 3000, and for Pete Rock, it was the SP 1200. But I'm not talking about that. Knife Wonder made dope beats on software formerly known as Fruity Loops. So I know that what you use doesn't matter.
It's never the machine, it's the man behind the machine. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people have Fruity Loops and they know it can do half of the stuff that's done or whatever.
The reason why the machine doesn't matter is because the creative mind is what determines a great beat. But that's also not what I'm talking about right now. The secret weapon is related to the mind and the machines, but it's specifically dealing with sounds that go in the machines. In my opinion, the hip-hop producer's secret weapon is the drums. In the early days of hip-hop, and even throughout the 90s, there was no such thing as going online to download a drum kit. If you wanted drums, you had to go to the source. And for most of our beloved producers, that source was vinyl. There are classic hip-hop songs from the 80s and the 90s that contain loops of break beats from old records. If you're not familiar with the term break beat, also called a drum break, it's a term for a literal break in the song. Pre-hip-hop, a lot of popular songs would have a spot where they stopped playing all the rest of the instruments and highlighted the drummer. These open drums were first used by DJs at block parties to keep the crowd dancing. They buy 2 copies of the same record that contained the break and mark the spot where the break is so they could play it over and over again on the turntables. Later, as I mentioned earlier, hip-hop producers started using these drum breaks. But here's the thing, looping a break beat works well enough because so much groove and rhythm is contained in many of the most sampled break beats in hip-hop. For examples of these, ones that instantly come to my mind are the Impeach the President, Synthetic Substitution, and It's a New Day drums. But of course, producers got more and more sophisticated than merely looping samples all the time. What if you took your favorite drum break and chopped it up and tapped out an entirely new pattern? How would that sound? Ask DJ Premier and Pete Rock. They did just that for the aforementioned Impeach the President. And like I said, there were no drum kits that you could buy. Besides that, no one would have been wanting to use another producer's drums anyway. That would have been called biting. Once producers discovered they could chop up break beats, how easy was the transition to taking a snare from Funky President, a kick from Get Out of My Life Woman, and a hi-hat from God knows whatever random song to essentially create your own drum kit?
And I'll take kicks and snares from records. I don't usually use library stuff, you know. For me, you can't find certain snares in the library. You know, some things you just hear on the record, you're like, whoa. I'll take a drum loop that's 2 bars, even a half of, not even. I'll take something that's a quarter of a bar, like a kick and a snare that goes boom, bap, but there's enough air between it. It sounds like it's just played together. And that's how I do it. I'll have a slew of drums, and then I'll have a slew of samples. And then I'll just put them all together and see what sounds best with what.
And we haven't even brought the EQing aspect into the equation. So if we've learned anything today, it's that drum machines are named that for a reason. Converting drums that were recorded live to a format where they are repurposed virtually without watering down their essence is a fascinating concept to me. Since we're talking about drums, we gotta talk about one of my favorite masters of drum programming and drum selection, the late great James DeWitt Yancey. The video you should see on your screen right now is called Breaking Down J Dilla's Microchopping Technique. It will go into detail on his sampling skill set specifically, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on that next video. Peace.